Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The End Credits, the podcast where two brothers discuss their thoughts on a film of their choosing. I'm Dominic.
I'm Jonathan.
And today we are talking about Christopher Nolan's science fiction / action film, Inception.
Wait, we gotta start this off right. So this is where Jack ends up after the Titanic.
Oh, yeah. There you go. Yeah, he washed up on the shore, and here he is, however many years later. I enjoyed this movie, you know? I can easily see why people liked it. And why it became so popular.
I'm actually I was excited to watch this when we discussed this, we're going to watch this month or whatnot. And I guess watching it again for the podcast, I guess for a lack of better terms, I was disappointed,
Yeah.
But I still enjoyed it, right? I like Inception for what it is, but in some other ways, I kind of wanted. It left me wanting more. So in that sense, you could say oh, maybe that's a good thing. But in another way, I want to say that I had some newfound issues, I guess.
Okay. All right.
Inception was directed by Christopher Nolan with a release date of July 16th, 2010. At a runtime of 2 hours and 28 minutes, and the genre is a science fiction / action. It stars Leonardo DiCaprio, Ken Watanabe, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and Marion Cotillard. Now, our Blu-ray copy does not have a summary in the background, so I'm going to have to go back to good old Google for this.
That's so sad.
Dom Cobb is a thief with the rare ability to enter people's dreams and steal their secrets from their subconscious. His skill has made him a hot commodity in the world of corporate espionage, but it has also cost him everything he loves. Cobb gets a chance at redemption when he is offered a seemingly impossible task. Plant an idea in someone's mind. If he succeeds, it will be the perfect crime, but a dangerous enemy anticipates Cobb's every move. I did not know he had a first name at all.
Yeah, it's Dominic. Finally, a main character has the same spelling as I do for my name.
They just abbreviate it to Dom in the summary.
It's just Dom, but his whole name's Dominic.
Interesting. Was it ever used or you brought up?
They say Dom.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, they say it several times throughout the movie. Usually they call him Cobb, though.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought it was. That's interesting.
Yeah, Cobb is his last name. But yeah, finally, there's a character named Dominic, then it's the protagonist. It's about time. I like how you were joking about this is where Jack ended up when he washed up on the shore of the island or whatever. I like how the film started in media res. I always liked those kind of openings for films. And especially since the in media res idea is or that technique is used a lot throughout that movie.
Yeah, it was a good start. They tried to do a match cut when they ended the whole beginning sequence or end sequence, whatever you want to call it. And it was good to try to jump us into a world a world how they kind of do when they go into dream states or whatnot. So it kind of made sense for this whole scenario to happen. But I guess in another way, it's I don't want to say because you don't really know, right? What it's supposed to mean at that point. Because I was gonna say it kind of spoils where it's supposed to lead to. But I guess that's what the whole deal with the media res, where we're shown this, but us as audience don't really see the context behind it. So ultimately, it doesn't affect us at all.
Right, because we don't understand how we've got here.
Right.
So, and I think that's what I like about the in media res, because we want to know how we ended up here at this place, and obviously it includes this whole epic journey, which is the whole Inception. And I think, obviously, like coming back, because it has that effect to where once we do discover everything, it makes that whole moment in the beginning much more meaningful, obviously, because we have the context.
Right.
And yeah, but I like this opening scene. Especially like, when we have that match cut, because we actually go inside of the like the start of the movie. And I like the scene, like in general, because like it looks great, like the setting's really nice, it looks beautiful, lighting, like the set design and everything looks great. But I like how this opening scene establishes, it basically establishes the rest of the film, I think.
Don't they start off with like talking about Inception?
Yeah, because they basically establish the idea of dreams and what dreams can do and what they mean in their world. But not only dreams, they talk about the idea of extraction, the idea that they can, steal a piece of information from someone else's mind within a dream. So we get that whole concept really early in the movie, so it's great that it's established. And not only do we establish that, we also establish the fact that there's problems like within doing so, or at least in this case with Cobb, we have the obvious problem that his wife is an intruder in these dreams.
At first, we're not really like given that whole information because we don't know like who she is at first,
Right.
and this is just some other person. We don't even really know it's they go into dream sequence or this is like a dream within a dream, whatever,
No.
until like further later on. But yeah, you're right. It's basically established here at first that there's some sort of connection here, and at least the wife, basically interrupts some sort of espionage deal that goes on.
Right, like interrupts the entire process. But yeah, we're given the idea that people can steal information from your dreams, and you got to look out for that. And in this case, Dom Cobb and his partner Arthur are making it clear to Saito that someone may be out there trying to get your information or your secrets or whatever, and kind of playing it up that I can protect you from that, but you got to let me in. And it's just like a really great display of like giving the audience an understanding of what it means to dream and what their role is and what their jobs are, because that's their job, because they work from some engineering company, as we learn like not long after. Masaito obviously doesn't fall into this, and basically they're kind of like left to pick up the pieces because they're trying. They tell them that these things could happen, and they're actually trying to do so. They're trying to get some information from Saito, and it was some kind of like engineering information from Saito's company for their own company or for their own good, but they obviously don't end up obtaining the information.
Yeah, it gets cut short, and basically they wound up leaving that whole sequence for like some other sequence at Saito's like a private room in some hotel, right?
Right.
And that ends up also crumbling, and eventually, again, we're just left with them kind of just failing this mission and seeing where it goes. But I do want to like stop and talk about the whole, because they explain a whole lot of detail right here with like just what happens throughout this whole dream sequence. Like there's tells on like what can happen when you get out, and just the whole idea of going into someone's mind, sharing this dream, and basically also creating that sense too.
The creation.
Because like I feel like I want to bring this up a bunch when we talk about as we go further in Inception, but it's very complicated ideas that somehow Christopher Nolan and his team have to like figure out to tell simply to an audience who probably has no clue what all these stuff could do or can do.
Mm.
And I want to say, like, in some ways it's doesn't do it justice in that sense, because I feel like in some ways it's the detail is not there, and it's kind of like left for the audience to, like, okay, let's just go along with it and continue on. And I want to say, like, a lot of that, like, complex detail is probably I guess left behind in order just for everything to happen and make sense. And I think that's one of the, like, possible barriers for, like, me, like, okay, I'm aboard this movie 100%, just because, you know, they have to have a lot of leeway, I guess. And it's not like how we talked about before in Batman. It doesn't have that, like, whole superhero
Right.
aesthetic to, like, you know, okay, sure, I'll be okay with it. And in this film, it's kind of like it's an action film that tries to stand alone, and it's depending on how you look on it,
Sure.
like, this could hurt the film in some way.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I think the hardest part about a film like this is that you have to be able to establish the rules.
Mm-hmm.
And in doing so, especially with an audience who may not be captivated by the idea or even understand the idea, in this case dreams, you run into the situation where you have to, like you were saying, Christopher Nolan and his team have to be able to, like, give that information in a simple way. And I think with that, you have the kind of like the drawback or the trade-off. That being, in doing so, that means the people who do end up, like, really getting into it and dissecting every little bit, they might find the holes. Like, the more you watch it over and over again, you're going to start finding, like, the places where it's a little bit more ambiguous, a little bit more up to the viewer. And as a first viewing, though, it's a lot of information to take in, so it's really, you don't even see those holes, you know.
It might come off as confusing.
Right. Exactly. But I think with the idea of, like, the dream world, and even as, like, we see, or as, like, Cobb, like, quotes later in the film, basically talking about the idea that once you're, like, exposed to that kind of world, the state of dreams, you're not going to want to, you're going to realize that the real world isn't enough anymore. And I think that, like, idea could be applied to just the idea of the story. And for people watching it, they're going to see that and they're going to think, wow, this is something to really get into and understand. And I think it's going to lead into confusion, of course, no doubt. But I think because it's such an interesting idea with the whole dreams, and then as we progress further, it's a dream within a dream, and then another one. So I think because of that, it works really well, and people are going to be willing to try to understand their confusion.
Yeah, I think it has a great hook, right, for, like, an action film.
Definitely.
But if I guess if you're wanting this, like, highly detailed, highly I guess research based, like, it could happen in the real world, something like for science fiction, you know, something like 2001 Space Odyssey,
right?
You know, Stanley made sure that everything is actually, like, you know, real, you know, like, has some basis in science. Where in this one, it's kind of like they had to take, like, again, liberties.
Yeah.
So you could say that, okay, great action film, great entertainment piece, but maybe, you know, not into that realm of, like, 2001 Space Odyssey and realism.
Yeah, definitely. And I think in this case, it's a lot better that they probably didn't go into that scientific realm, because I think we get a lot of ambiguity within the film anyway already, and trying to give an answer to everything, that would have probably led to even more confusion. And then maybe at that point, people probably didn't even want to or were willing to understand the ideas or the rules and the concepts anymore. What we were given, what the audience was given, was probably enough already. But it definitely, I think it does it well. And, like, with that, I feel like with the ideas of the dreams and the concepts, it's able to deliver like those plot points or those plot pieces. I don't know if I would. I guess I would say clearly. Like it does it clearly and quickly. Especially like once we get out of the those like several dream sequences that we're in the very beginning, and when we understand what Saito's position is or his role is in the film with Cobb and Arthur, and basically the idea that now Cobb and Arthur are going to take the offer of Inception. Essentially, Saito wants Inception.
Right.
Since Cobb and Arthur are both skilled in this dream world, he wants them to be able to plant an idea into a Saito, a rival of Saito's.
Right. Some
mind.
rival company.
Yes. Yep. So, and that's the idea of Inception, planting an idea in someone else's mind. And I think like when they did all of that, when they discussed all of that, it moved really quickly, you know?
Right. It established like a clear pattern, like
Right.
This is the mission. Now let's gather our resources together so that we can complete this mission.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we like the movie takes time to like basically give us all the characters that are needed to help them through this complex journey, right?
Yeah.
Because we go to like around the world basically.
Right. And it's like expanding the ideas in the same way also, you know? And also like expanding the stakes, but it's almost like we're given the plot points and everything, and it's like just a go, go, go. You know, it's like we're given the plot points and now we're skipping right to the good stuff. And personally, like you're saying, when we do move on to like assembling the team, I think that's a really great moment because like we're gathering up this team because as we know, Cobb and Arthur lost their architect, so now they got to find a new one. And as we go through, we are introduced to Ariadne, who is the new architect. I ended up doing some research because as we were watching the film, we were confused on whether or not Michael Caine's character is the father of Cobb or Mal's father. Mm-hmm. It looks like it's Mal's father.
Oh, really?
It's his father-in-law.
Okay.
Yeah, so basically, Cobb goes to his father-in-law who works in Paris and like an architectural school or of some kind. Mm-hmm. And basically, Cobb seeks out a new student so they can be the architect. He picks out Ariadne. And let's see, who do we go to next? I think it's Eames.
Yeah, Eames is next. He's their forger, their identity theft guy, basically.
Yeah. I think every time when I get to the Eames part, like I love this whole team assembly sequence, but like when we get to Eames, he's probably one of my favorite characters, and I really enjoy when like we get those moments with him. But yeah, he ends up going to Eames, and it looks like they've worked together before. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I don't know. This whole sequence of just introducing more characters and like being able to seek out someone who's more experienced in a certain particular thing, because obviously Cobb can't do it himself, especially with this Inception idea that they need to, or the Inception like plan that they need to go forth with. Mm-hmm. And I think it's just like really interesting. It's enjoyable. It's fun to watch like the group assemble. And even like when we get to Yusef, the like the technician with the medicine and being able to like provide the sedatives that they're going to need in order to go down three levels of dreams. And I don't know, like just like with those concepts and everything, it just makes it all the more interesting. And you're like, man, what does this mean? What are the extents that these characters are like capable of? Like, what are their abilities? And they're all like so smart in their own way, and it is really enjoyable to watch and see them work together.
Yeah, here's like the moment in time where the movie tries to take these complex ideas for Inception and how everything can work, and tries to, I guess, explain it to the average audience. And I feel like, again, if you're watching this for your first time, it's probably okay. You might get confused and like, okay, wait, what's happening here? But I think as you go along, like I feel like I've seen Inception 8 billion times.
it's been
Okay, and I don't know, like when I saw it, recently again for the podcast, I was like, wait, can this really happen? For example, like when they were creating the sedatives, the different types to go 3 layers deep.
Yeah.
Like how would you be able to create one that gives your hearing, your hearing doesn't go impaired or whatnot? And that doesn't make sense.
Like you could still feel the sensation of falling.
Yeah, it's like
the kick.
How would you go about making? I don't know. For me, that seems that's just one example of like the liberties they take. I feel as if to make this all action sequence happen.
Like just to kind of like bring it all together and let it like, I guess, tie up neatly. Yeah. I also agree. Like that moment, I felt like everything was working really well together. In my opinion, before that moment, I think like you said, I think it's just those are one of those like examples that. I remember hearing, and I was like, he customized the sedative so it would not impair your hearing.
I was like, what?
It was a little strange, but hey, maybe it's possible. But
I don't know. I mean,
I definitely agree. This is the part where things get confusing, but they really try to make it streamlined and simple through the characters trying to figure it out. Like, and watching their plane develop is like the way that the audience is receiving that. Because they're talking through it and they're trying to understand it and try to, form the plan together, and it's helping all of us.
Right. It's like, yeah, I guess, again, I think it works, the first couple of times, but I think eventually you kind of like, you start to see, wait, what? Or start to question a little bit more.
Yeah, totally.
Just the rules of this whole boundaries. But, again, if you're looking for like an action, film that you can enjoy that has like a little bit complexity, it's fine,
Yeah, I think it's all it needs because, not gonna lie, I was still like intrigued by it.
Right. I think it's
you're just starting to pick up on some of those things.
It's hard not to like get invested in some of these characters, I feel as if.
Yeah, definitely.
And that at least helps, carry the whole movie along.
Mm-hmm. Around this part, even before, because like we were saying in the beginning, we are introduced to Cobb's wife, but we don't know how much of a problem she is yet, or we don't really know the whole backstory. And then we get like a little bit more, especially when they're talking about like when they're getting ready for the Inception plan. When they're getting ready to go through with it, Ariadne starts to like discover more about Cobb and his wife, Mal. How did you feel about Cobb and Mal's story? I guess in a way, I was about to call it a subplot, but I don't think I would call it one. I think it's more of like the main plot really for Cobb because Cobb really just wants to get back home and he can't go back home.
It's probably...
Is it more of a subplot or is it the main?
It depends because, like, obviously he's the main character.
Right.
I would say it's more of a subplot because the whole movie really evolves around the Inception thing. I feel as if... Well, oh man, it's tough actually. Either way, it's a big thing of the plot, okay?
Right.
And I don't know, it's
what's the deal with Nolan's recurring broken relationships theme?
I mean, it works, I think, to like, it creates this interesting factor that, that goes into, he basically can't do his whole job because, he feels guilty about the death of his wife at least. And I don't know, like, I think it works, but I didn't find myself questioning too much when it came to that area. It's like, okay, sure, death of a loved one, it's gonna hurt you, right? And
right,
it's gonna basically stay with you until you can eventually move on. But No, I think it worked as like another, I guess you could call her a villain, for the film, a villain arc, quote
Sure.
unquote.
Yeah.
Um, I think it worked. I didn't find myself when I was watching it questioning so much. What I was questioned much was just the rules of the world rather than how he viewed his relationship or what went down. So I don't think I really even thought about it.
Interesting, because for me, I felt like I was definitely the least invested in that part. In those moments, I was definitely more invested in the Inception story,
Mm-hmm.
and not as much with Cobb and his backstory and everything. I almost kind of felt like at some points it was kind of the main focus, because obviously, in order to, the only reason why he took the Inception offer was because Saito would be able to um, let him go back home. But I don't know. It felt like they were paying attention to the whole Cobb story in the beginning, and as we progressed, the Inception became more of the idea. And I don't know. I guess because of that, it just felt like the Cobb and his backstory was starting to fall on the wayside, in my opinion. I just I don't know. I don't know. As I was watching, I just didn't feel like I was as invested in that storyline as we progressed. In the beginning, I thought it was nice, but I think just because like Maul kept messing up things time and time again, like in the plan and whatnot, for whatever reason, I always felt like it fit back when I used to watch it when I was younger. But I feel like now, as like watching it nowadays, I feel like it just doesn't fit as well as I remember it. Like actually like fitting.
Uh, yeah. I guess for me, I can kind of see what you're saying, and if anything, it's more on just how Cobb acted for me at least. Like,
Yeah,
you
I'll
know
agree.
how he puts everybody else in danger. He doesn't really let anybody in. It makes sense, like he doesn't want anybody, to. Um, he doesn't want to trouble anybody, with his whole problems, and quote unquote, and
Sure.
um, you see that, oh, he's kind of just desperate to get home, so he just feels like it's on him. But I guess again, it goes back to the whole rules thing, like the idea that him and Maul went to limbo for like ever, and they come back. I'm like, what does that got to do to your mind?
Oh yeah,
It's
definitely.
like, uh, I don't know. I feel as if you'd be so. He seems. Well, I guess that's the whole. You could even basically claim that that's why he acts this way or whatnot, because he's been through this whole thing, so his mind's kind of like, I don't know. It depends on what you want to say about it, but
He's definitely not too stable. It's clear, especially like as we see like in little bits of scenes before like the Inception um like before Inception actually takes place. He's he's doubting reality quite a bit every now and then. Like as we learn about totems, the pieces that basically everyone has a totem, and their own totem reveals whether or not they're dreaming or not, or in their
mhm,
reality. And in Cobb's case, it's a top,
mhm,
and he's going back and forth with his top like quite a bit whenever he gets inside of a dream. Usually when it or maybe every time when it includes Maul, or when he keeps like seeing images of like the past, he'll constantly like go to his totem and like just try to make sure that try to reassure himself that he's actually in reality and not dreaming. And so it's clear that like he's not in a good place, and
right,
that he's struggling to maintain the idea of whether or not, or like maintain the idea then to know that he's in reality or not. And I think, as you were saying, that like, what's it going to do to his mind? I think we're seeing
yeah,
that actually manifest within the movie, and it's not like we just forget about all of it,
right, yeah, you're right.
Um, but I don't know. I guess I didn't really. I agree with you. I think the way that he just reacted to it, basically not telling the rest of his like team that they could be in potential danger and whatnot. It just like Ariadne was like the only one who already knew that these problems were getting worse and worse. And it's like until she came around and let Cobb know that this is a problem and you got to let the others know. It's like really at this point, you're finally going to let them know. And I don't know.
Yeah.
It just kind of felt like he should have done it a long time ago. And the fact that he didn't was
Irritating.
upsetting. Yeah, upsetting and irritating.
Right.
Yeah, definitely.
Before we enter like the beginning of the mission, I want to say that the biggest power play was when Saito was like, he just buys the airline. I'm kind of like, that was the best part. Best line, probably.
Best line of the entire movie. It's hilarious when they're going through and, talking about the Inception mission. Yeah, that moment when Saito just says, like, yeah, I bought the entire airline because it seemed neater.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, man, hilarious. So good. What a good character. And the fact that he actually he joins them, he joins the rest of them on the mission because he originally wasn't supposed to be there.
Right.
So that was neat that he ended up coming along. And as Eames would say, there's not enough room for tourists on this mission, on a mission like this. But I love the relationship between the characters too. They all work so well together.
Right.
And I don't know if that's just like in terms of like them as actors as well that they work together. And I hope they did because I think it definitely shows, especially with the characters that they're playing. They definitely have a chemistry, and the characters certainly do. And it makes everything feel a lot more like I can get with this, and I can suspend my disbelief for this because everyone's like just so in line with each other, you know?
I wonder, like, going to the production side of this movie, like, what order they shot everything in.
Oh, yeah.
Because, like, obviously, we see that, like, camaraderie, you know, in them. And, you know, it's kind of like, okay, I wonder in reality based, like, did they shoot this scene yet? Or did they shoot this scene yet? Like, did they have this, like, moments to talk about or whatnot? Or was it just, like, that was real time, quote unquote, and then they did like all the other scenes. That's kind of like interesting to like see. I wonder how they pieced everything together.
I'm sure it was strange, but usually those shots or those scenes are shot out of order. But yeah, I wonder how it must have felt like to go from this and then the next day we're gonna go to the like one day we're gonna be in the very like middle, and then the next scene we're in the beginning. You know?
That's what I'm saying, because it's got to be tough for the actor just to like, okay, they don't have this level of relationship yet.
Yeah.
So like the fact that we saw it right here, did they as actors have to like up the relationship value level? I don't know what you want to call it, or was it like this was after the facts, so they. Was natural.
It was natural to them.
I don't know. Like me, you know.
They just had to get to know each other a little bit more, I'm sure. But and a lot of the time you usually see Christopher Nolan reusing a lot of people too, which is like nice because then it kind of like builds these relationships even further because like, oh, I worked with you at one point and now I'm gonna work with you again down the line, and it just helps.
Right.
It's really exciting when we finally get into the Inception mission. Yeah. Like when it starts like finally happening.
I feel like this is where the movie really starts in my mind. It's like, okay, because how far are we in this film? Probably like an hour at this point. I don't even know, because I feel as if the Inception mission takes a bunch of the time.
Yeah.
So I want to say this is where it starts. I don't know if we're like an hour, or like maybe we're in halfway. I'm not sure, but
we might not even be at the hour mark yet.
Oh, that's true.
At this point, like I said, I think it moves really quickly. Like when we're assembling the team and like the whole beginning section, it moves pretty quickly. And I think we're probably like, I don't know, maybe 45 to 50 minutes in at this point. I'm not sure. But yeah, they finally start like going through with the mission and everything, and like them going under, and like they're in the plane, and they've got Cillian Murphy's character in there, Robert Fisher. And I love how we get into the first dream, and it's Yusuf's dream, and it's like all raining and everything. And it's great because I actually never noticed this. He actually takes a sip of wine right before he goes under.
You didn't notice this?
No, well, I always noticed the line that I think Eames said, or maybe maybe it was Arthur who said it. Who said like, "Oh, you just had to take a, like you had to go on like a wine fast or something right before you went to sleep." I noticed that line. I noticed that. But I never actually noticed him taking the sip right before he went under. And I was like, oh, I never caught that moment before. And I thought I was like, oh, that's really funny. So that was a nice little like tidbit that like after all these years watching this movie,
you learned something new.
I learned something new. So that was neat. That was funny. Yeah. So like it's raining and everything, and the mission definitely does not go to plan early on, very early on.
Yeah, it's like they're expecting this like easy, calm, it's like basically in and out, we got this, you know. But what happens is basically this they say it's like a military assault basically, right? That happens where a train comes out of nowhere and guys in these cars and trucks just start pulling out like assault rifles or something like that and just start protecting Fisher. And it's kind of like, whoa, we weren't planning for this.
No, not at all. And at this moment, like if you got the volume cranked when you're watching this movie, definitely turn it down at this point because that train is loud when it comes in. But yeah, so like Fisher, so like obviously they weren't prepared for this, and they didn't even know that Fisher might have received some kind of training to protect his mind from extractors.
Which here again, that could be like a complicated thing to like even that they kind of brushed off. I feel because like obviously in this world and like going into people's minds or whatnot is like an actual talked about thing, and that there's training to protect yourself from, it's like, I don't know, it's a weird concept to think about in our reality nowadays because like it's kind of like, okay, you know how they sell VPNs, right? Somebody might see what you're, browsing or whatnot.
Sure.
It's kind of like that, where like they give you some sort of thing to like, okay, this is a real thing, and
we're gonna keep you safe out there.
Yeah, it's weird, but it's a big issue that I feel like kind of just gets swept under the rug.
Well, see, like again, with the idea of how the movie needs to present all these concepts and ideas, I think it's okay because no one's going to question like, okay, like it's just training and someone could take training for it in this world. And they're not going to go into it too deeply because we have bigger things to understand and like learn if you aren't confused already.
Right.
So it's kind of like, I understand, but I think with the context and with the purpose of the movie, I think it's okay.
Yeah, we can just keep going.
Right. It's definitely really intense, like I hear, because they get ambushed and Saito gets injured. He gets shot, and basically he's at the point of like, oh, he could die now.
Yeah,
and that leaves everyone very anxious and on edge because if Saito dies, it's not like he'll just wake up at this point. His mind will probably get lost to limbo, which, so they introduce like the whole like limbo idea that basically like with such a powerful sedative, something like killing yourself within the dream won't just wake you up. Your mind will be sent to limbo,
which is like some space in the subconscious. I don't know how they even explain what this place is, but basically.
Limbo is limbo.
Yeah,
everyone gets that.
You don't want to go there.
You don't want to go there. And as they describe, it's basically like a world full of nothing. Like the nothing's down there, except for what people have left, for who anyone who's created anything down there. And as we find out that the only one who has been down there is Cobb.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So basically, everyone's on edge. It's all bad, and it's all downhill from here.
Yeah.
And because they didn't expect any of this, but they continue on with the mission because that's really the only choice they have. Yeah, pretty intense.
Yeah, basically, they're still trying to. The whole mission of the Inception was to basically change Fisher's mind so that he would basically dismantle his father's company. So they're trying to get him to, I guess, here's like another thing that's get brushed over, right? Like this whole mission or whatnot. So they want to basically repair his father's relationship, but in reality, was that ever the case? You know, because they're gonna change fundamentally how he thinks about his father,
Right.
right? In reality, he had like this terrible relationship, you know,
Yes.
just with the whole business and everything, and like they kind of like feed him this idea that he actually was a good guy and he cared about you. Like that's like a good thing to do. Is like, oh yeah, I want to like my parents and everything. Like they did a lot for me.
Sure.
But technically that was all a dream, right? So like,
yes.
Did you know,
or an idea that they're trying to like plant in his head.
So like technically this whole mission, like here just at the start, you know, a bad thing that they're doing?
Well, yeah, it is because as we know, Saito, he wants Fisher's father's company, because the Fisher's father has a company, an energy like conglomerate that's like taking over, and Saito's also in this energy business, and Saito needs the corporation to fall. Fisher's father is dying, and now Robert Fisher, the son, is the one who's got to take over, but he doesn't want him. Saito doesn't want Robert Fisher to continue it because it's going to put Saito's company out of business. So it's really all about business, and Saito just wants the company, the empire, to fall. So Saito can still have his energy business and company.
It's just like the fact that, you know, we're in the viewpoint of the main characters, and we want to believe that they're doing the right thing, and we're on this mission to, you know, simply like save the world, quote unquote, right? But like we're doing something bad technically, right? Aren't we?
Yeah, it's a business.
It's like okay.
Yeah, and see, I think that's maybe another thing that kind of gets glossed over. It's like, why are we doing this again?
You're right.
And you know, it just kind of gets like replaced with the action and the awesome, the like
stakes,
dream state.
Don't die, and you know, save, you know, the people who went along with your whole Inception plan and stuff like that, and you know, forgive yourself, and you know, I don't know.
Yeah, you really do get lost in it, because I think, again, the idea that the dreams and the ideas and the concepts and the rules that are involved with Inception, that is captivating for most people. And once you are in it, you kind of don't want to let go, and you're just really invested in that and that only, which is why I was saying that I feel like the Cobb storyline kind of falls a little bit short, because the Inception idea is so captivating that I kind of really just not forget about it, but I'm just not as interested with Cobb and his wife Mal. Like at that point, I'm just kind of like, I just want to go back to the Inception world. Like I want to go back
to the action.
Yeah, I want to see what's happening. Yeah, so you know, they're in that first level, and then they have to go to the second one. And again, I think it's just really interesting as we go further down and deeper down, because we see how everything is like working together, and you start to understand it more, especially like when you go from like the first to the second, as they put themselves under again. And yeah, just like really interesting, especially like the way the physics play. And that's another great part of this film. Just the way that like physics are like playing a role in the world, and that being, you know, there is no physics really, I guess.
Right.
Things could be floating, things could be like moving.
It's a dream.
Yeah, it's a dream, and things move in a weird way. And that's the really cool thing, is because as you're watching these scenes, as we go down like the first and the second and even the third dream, people can think in their minds, you know, like, you know, that is kind of how dreams work. They don't necessarily like follow the rules of physics. You never know how they start or begin. You're kind of just thrusted in the middle of it, and you're seeing all these things take place, and you're trying to make some kind of sense out of it.
It's also cool that in some ways that the like the above level, I guess, affects the lower level, because
That is cool, yeah.
how, that they as characters are in some van, in the back of a van that's going, in this chase scene, trying to get away from the armed guys that we know nothing about.
The projections, yeah.
Yeah. And, when they're in this like hotel bar area, they see just how much everything has changed around just because the water splashed on you, and again going back to this physics, it just completely changes the whole weather in this level. And I don't know, it's cool to see.
Yeah, definitely. It's intriguing, and it's like enjoyable to watch and like to understand. And I really love that moment when we do get into the second dream, and how Cobb is kind of playing this whole, kind of like how we did with Saito in the very beginning, as we saw, as this like person who protects you from extractors, the ones who want to steal things or information in your dreams, in your subconscious, or in your mind. So he kind of plays that. He plays that kind of role when he's under with Robert Fisher, and like basically trying to like tell him that like, oh, you're dreaming. And he's like actually telling him that, hey, you're dreaming right now, and someone's trying to steal information from you.
The Mr. Charles sequence.
Yeah, the Mr. Charles, like, like gimmick or something, the character. And it's really interesting. It's really interesting that like he went that far, and it's a risky move to tell the subject that you're dreaming right now, and someone's trying to steal information from you.
Well, it makes you also wonder, like, because obviously their plans, get disturbed, completely, right?
Right.
They shatter. Plan A is long gone, right? It just makes you wonder what was the original plan, because, when they're driving, they're like, oh, let's just go with Mr. Charles or whatnot, right?
Oh, right, yeah.
And it's like, what was the other thing they're gonna do? When they got to this level, because this was the risky part. Because we could obviously see how risky it was to tell him that, oh, this is a dream, and it just makes you wonder, like, what was the original plan?
Yeah, it's like, well, yeah, exactly. Was it actually more thought out and thought through?
Yeah,
yeah. No, I definitely agree, and and the reason why it is such like a, such a like risk to even tell Robert that he's dreaming is because like, oh, he could wake himself up and not be really bad. And probably everyone would get lost to limbo at that point. But yeah, I think probably the second dream is probably one of my favorites, when Cobb is playing the whole Mr. Charles role. And I don't know, like, again, just like in the very beginning, we get a great sense of like setting. Like, let's appreciate the setting and the look of everything, like the lighting, like the costumes, everything just looks so great in the scene. I don't know, like this entire like second dream is definitely one of my favorites. Especially like when we get into like the famous like zero gravity scene when Arthur has this big fight with the projections within the dream, and even as I was watching it this time around, I was like, man, I was thinking back to 2001: A Space Odyssey, because Nolan was inspired by that film. It took several production ideas that Stanley Kubrick had used in 2001 and implemented them in Inception, and specifically this fight sequence. And it was so neat to like see it like happen, and the music is just so epic, and you're just watching this whole hallway or building like just turn like in a whole 360, and people are fighting like within it, and it's like, how is this even happening right now? Of course it's a dream, but it's just, this is what's so captivating about a film like Inception.
Yeah, it's kind of honestly like a shame that we didn't spend more time there, because I feel like they kind of left quickly, and Arthur was just on his own.
Yeah,
and like, sure, we got these all cool scenes and all, just how all this gravity and all this fight scenes. So they had multiple fight scenes and whatnot.
Yeah,
but it's kind of like, I guess once they got everything okay, Fisher's like, okay, I'll go with you or whatnot, and I'll help you go into his mind technically, right?
Right. Yeah.
You know, I don't know. It's such a cool location and again setting and everything about this design. But yeah, it's like we kind of just like move on to like the snow area, and it's kind of like it makes you question like how this one affected the other ones, right? Because like you know, when he drank his wine or whatnot on the plane, it affected the world below.
Oh, right.
Like, how did we get to this cold area? You know, was he cold or something in the hotel? I don't know.
Possibly. Maybe he was just thinking like, oh, things are like cold right now. That's a good question. And it also leads me to wonder like, because we obviously know that people have to like we have the architects, for example, and they have to design the dreams. But how do they design someone else's dream if we're within their own dream?
Right. And
so I was confused.
It's like, how do you even design this stuff? Like, because, you know, if you know, you do any like video editing, maybe even sound or 3D stuff, you know, you have to input this stuff, you know, when you do everything on there, right?
Right.
But like, how would you input this in your mind? Do you just think about it before you enter, or
right?
Like, how does, I don't know.
Again, it does leave things up in the air and whatnot, and it's hard to like actually pinpoint and explain everything thoroughly. You know,
let's just go with
it. And it is really fun. You know, we're in this like snow scene, but obviously as we're seeing that Saito's, you know, we're losing Saito more and more as we go deeper. And not doing so well. And again, it seems like everything's falling apart, especially since they're losing time in order to, you know, go through with the mission. So they had to take some shortcuts in that last dream, which they do. And Ariane is a little bit like, you know, hesitant to let Cobb know what that shortcut is because, as we know, Cobb likes to let Mal into his like his mind, and if Mal gets involved, everything's over and it gets all messed up. And as we see, Mal, you know, intrudes the dream and kills Robert Fisher.
Yeah, no hesitation or nothing.
Then Cobb, you know, kills Mal, and basically it seems like at that point we're at the third level down of the dream states, and it's like at this point Robert Fisher's dead. The mission's over. We're done, guys.
We're done. Pack it up.
Yeah, pack it up. We're going home. We're going to limbo. And it almost seems like at that point we're like, oh man, this is the last bit of hope that we have, and there's nothing else.
It's kind of funny in that scene actually, you know, when they like, okay, it's game over, right? But like it's kind of like even the music I feel like just drops out because it's like it had this intensity, you know, let's go.
Yeah.
And okay, it's over. All right, let's just you know, pack it up.
Right. And then
it's like, oh wait, I was like, I wish we saw what happened, you know, in the next level. I was like, dang it.
Oh, right, because even Eames was saying that he's like, oh man, I really want to see what's behind that, like you know, that big like cell door or whatever. He's like, oh man, I was like, I thought we really had this one.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, we thought so too. And then Ariane, like, you know, realizes that there is another way still. And she's like, why don't we just go to limbo? Like, why don't we actually just force ourselves to go to limbo? Yeah. And I'm like, okay, I guess they can. And at that point, probably if you're really confused now. Yeah. You know, and they end up going to limbo. And
it's like, why not?
Yeah, exactly. Because obviously Fisher's got to be down there because his mind's lost at this point already. And if you're not following, it's totally okay. Just go ahead and watch Inception because we can only sum up so much. And I understand, even as I'm speaking and talking about it right now, I'm probably confusing. I'm confusing myself. But yeah, so then Ariane and Cobb have to go and, you know, go down into limbo and find Fisher and basically bring him back with a kick, and they have to figure out how they're going to do that. They don't even know how they're going to do that. And again, we play back into like this Cobb and Mal storyline, and we finally like finish it out.
Yeah.
And yeah, see, like again, at this point, I'm just not invested in their storyline anymore. I'm just like, I want it to end already. And I don't know if you felt that same way.
Yeah, I guess at this point it doesn't seem as impactful because you kind of got invested in the whole Fisher storyline at this point.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, there's really, I guess, no room for the Mal and Cobb storyline. So they're like, okay, I guess you don't feel that like weight, I guess, of that moment that you should do.
I agree.
And it's kind of like unfortunate because I feel as if once you learn that, oh, it was him that caused her to do this whole guilt stuff, or this whole basically make her believe that her reality wasn't real, or stuff like this,
right, because she ended up killing herself in the real world.
Right. And it's basically, that's why he feels guilty and whatnot.
Right.
And it's kind of like unfortunate because, their performance at that time, I think it holds up, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
But like, I don't know, it just, again, you were just focused on the Fisher storyline at this moment, that like, even their performances at that moment, you still didn't really feel.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I totally know what you're saying, because like at this point, like we were going, like it was all so fast, and then we slowed down in this last act.
Mm-hmm.
And it is like, I think it is kind of unfortunate because I don't think it's really necessarily like a bad storyline, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's good, but I just think that maybe the placement was a little off.
Right.
Especially like how you're saying that we were invested in the Robert Fisher storyline and the Inception storyline, that like you just kind of feel like at this point you just don't really want to see the Cobb and the Mal storyline, and their performances are so good. That whole scene though, I'll admit, it's really good, especially like when you pair it with the music and the performances, and you're just like, and like as we know with the whole their story, and Mal, the Mal wanted to grow old together with Cobb and everything, and the fact that like you do realize that they actually did. They had a whole like 50 years down there or more, and they did grow old and everything, and that's when we learn like, that when they came back, like they were like in youth again, and but Mal still had like that idea like still in her head that her reality wasn't real. Yeah, like you get all that information like right then and there. It is good, but I don't know. I just feel like at that point you just kind of tune out because you want to see more of Fisher, and you want to be able to get back into that Inception storyline. So yeah, everything's basically like picking up at this point. We're really getting like thrown with all the information, and even Cobb decides to stay behind because he knows at this point that Saito is probably lost in limbo, and he's probably somewhere down here, and now he needs to find him. And this whole like end sequence was really neat, especially like when they have to, whenever like member of the group has to like sync up the kick for everyone to actually wake up and come back to reality. Such a cool scene, epic. It's the definition of a blockbuster film at that moment.
Yeah, it's pretty good when they go into that whole sequencing of the kick, or trying to sequence. But I guess before we do get to the whole sequence, we do get the payoff for the Fisher storyline.
Oh, right.
And I think this is where at least I feel the most stuck. In comparison when we talked about like the Cobb and Mal storyline, like I don't really feel too much, and it's kind of unfortunate again going back, but like in this moment with the whole his father and everything, I can't help but like always like, oh dang it, or something. I feel something.
Started like tearing up a little between Robert Fisher and his father.
Even though like again going back to the idea that maybe it's a fake because this is a dream. It was like, why?
It is kind of strange that the fact that that whole like story is kind of for like not the best like purpose, but like I agree, you just do feel something from the storyline. The fact that their relationship is definitely like it's rekindled, and it actually it brings something else in Robert Fisher, like this different side of him, because like throughout the film he's like kind of cold and everything, and kind of like rude and everything. But like this moment when he's got the heart to heart with the father and son, I don't know. It was a good moment.
It was a good moment.
It was a great moment that you just like, and it only lasted like a few seconds.
Yeah. I was like, oh man. And then when Eames hits the button and the whole, sequencing back with the kick starts.
Yeah.
And yeah, like we were saying before, it's really cool just to see all their like they kind of drop all at once, like open their eyes, open their eyes, open their eyes, and then boom, we're back to the first level or whatnot. And yeah, basically they quote unquote. It's kind of weird though at that point because like I always thought, I was like, how come they went all the way back to the first level and didn't go all the way back to the plane sequence right there? Because like, shouldn't that kick in the first level brought them back also, to the real world? So now it's like, wait, what?
I was confused too because the kick in the first one should have brought them back into the reality.
Yeah. I don't know. Here's another moment where like, okay, whatever, but
or maybe that kick from the first level was only meant to just bring them back to that first level, and then by the time they got back to the first dream, they just had to kill themselves or something.
No, because in the beginning of the film, Cobb or Leonardo DiCaprio, he drops into the water in the other one to wake himself up. Oh, he didn't go back to another one. So okay, I guess it makes sense.
Yeah. It's only to get back to that first level.
Yeah.
So we didn't actually see how they got back from that first level, but we can assume that
they got back somehow.
Because they did. Because we end up back in the plane. Well, before that, though, we do see we're thrusted back yet again to the very beginning of the film.
Yep.
And now we understand this in media res moment between Cobb and what we realize now is Saito as an old man waiting to die alone. Yeah. Oh no, darn it, I said it wrong. Bad. An old man filled with regret waiting to die alone.
You always mess up these end sequences, I feel like. Especially when Batman Begins, you messed up the headline. But
I know. Jesus, God. Oh, man. Okay, yeah. That's the line. Yeah. So, we see Saito again, and it makes that whole in media res moment from the beginning much more meaningful.
Yep.
And that's what I really like about those kind of moments, because we see it in the beginning. Sure, was it ruined? Yes, I guess. I don't really see it as ruined because we don't really understand the context.
We don't really get the context.
Right. So we're back here at this beginning, and now Cobb is just basically telling him, reminding Saito that who you are, and you gotta go back with me. And we gotta go back and be young men together again. And we end up going back, and that's definitely a crazy part. I couldn't even imagine how it must have felt for Saito.
Yeah, it's like, I can't believe he's in One Piece. So it seemed like, we don't really get that confirmation or whatnot.
Yeah,
really. But
we almost kind of do in an inexplicit way. I really love that moment when both Cobb and Saito come back when they were woken up in the plane, or when they wake up in the plane, and you get this. You see it in their eyes. We have no dialogue, no actual dialogue, and I love that it's just left to nonverbal communication. Cobb wakes up and look at the look in his eyes, like he's almost doesn't recognize who's talking to him. I think it's just one of the stewardess in the plane. He doesn't even understand maybe what language is, or who this is, and he doesn't understand where he is, just by the look in his eyes. And Saito had the same reaction, and that's what I really love, because we can understand that feeling that I'm just questioning of. I couldn't imagine how it would feel, but you can see it in their eyes.
Right. I agree. And then we end up with the end sequence where, again, great music to end it off. It's like, oh, can he come back to America, I guess?
Yeah,
and,
can Cobb finally come home?
And, he has this little, moment was okay, maybe not everything's okay, because, he gives him the passport, and, this is the last chance. Did it work? And it did, and
Saito came through.
Yeah, Saito came through. We see this, awesome shot where, he just walks down, sees everybody in this whole Inception, I guess, team or whatnot, and
it's almost sad too, because you're like, oh man,
it's over.
Yeah, it's over. You don't want to lose the team.
Dream team. Yeah, you don't want to lose the dream team, and everything's all nice and fine. He goes back home throws the top one more time on the table.
Well, he gets to see his kids though. Finally.
Oh yeah, he gets first he drops the top, and then he goes to see the kids, and is excited or whatnot. And then here we enter the famous scene for Inception, probably that everybody thinks about,
Right.
because he drops the top, he sees his kids, and it's all excited moments. But then the camera goes back to the spinning top, and it just ends right there. We never see it topple. We never see anything else. It's just completely end credits right there.
Yeah. An ambiguous ending. And obviously, like, the significance behind the top just staying and not actually like falling is because the top has to fall in reality. And if it continues spinning, that means you're still in a dream. And yeah, we never actually see it fall, and we just cut and we just go to black and we go to the end credits.
Right.
Yeah, definitely talked about seeing whether or not that Cobb is still dreaming. It's interesting though, the fact that he still needs to reassure himself after all of that, after everything that has happened, which it makes sense, that he needs to reassure himself that he's not dreaming.
Well, technically, you could say that in reality, technically, that he doesn't need it anymore, because the fact that he at one moment he dropped it, but then he saw his kids and was like, okay, whatever. He kind of just leaves it behind, quote unquote, and he doesn't really go back to. We don't see him come back to check it or whatnot. So, and that way, does he need to even know anymore? I think he got like past that whole thing where it doesn't really matter as long as he found some sort of happiness. It goes kind of go back to like Memento, in that sense, where like, do you allow yourself to be happy or whatnot, but done in some other way, It's interesting. It's definitely talked about, definitely debated, Dude, I kind of heard that it went down or whatnot.
Yeah.
It's like I heard it, man.
I heard it.
But
well, we definitely saw the top wobble. It didn't. It didn't topple all the way. It didn't fall, but we definitely saw it wobble a little bit. So it leads me to believe, and that's what's great about that ending, or those kinds of like ambiguous endings. It leaves it up to the audience to like say, "Oh yeah, he's still dreaming, and it's still spinning," or it fell. And for me personally, I think it probably fell because it started wobbling, but it was still spinning.
You never know.
I'm never going to know. I hope that he's back in reality at this point and he isn't dreaming, because that would suck.
I used to always hate that ending, like the first time I watched it. But now,
really?
Yeah, I always just hate. I guess just the fact that we just didn't know. I always hated it. But nowadays, I'm like, okay, I like it. I'm more open to the idea that. It's kind of like left out there. We don't really have to know. It depends, just like how strong you're really connected to these characters, and like, oh man, I really want to see him, be happy or whatnot.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think overall, it's probably one of the best pieces for Inception.
Yeah,
to end it that way.
Yeah, totally. It's definitely a really great moment, and you really want to have the hope that he's in reality now, and he's out of dreamland, and he can finally like be with his kids and be happy. Like it's just like I really do want to know, but I'm glad that we can just keep it ambiguous, and we can just keep it like it's up to our own interpretation. I will say though, and this is another key fact that I didn't actually like pick up on the very first time. Because remember how when we were introduced to the ideas of totems being like the top, Arthur's way to die. So there was this whole big deal of like not letting them touch it. And I wonder, like, is it because like if someone else touches it and if someone else has to create the dream, they'll know the physics of how it works, correct?
Yeah.
All right. If you remember this part, Cobb, he lets Ariadne hold the top.
Right. That's what I was actually going to bring that up, because technically, let's say this is fake. She's the only one that actually knows everything. She's been to that house. She saw the kids or whatnot.
Yeah.
Like, and she knows what's the Mal's Michael Caine's character,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, the father-in-law.
So
Miles, I think.
so technically, you know, it could have been created for him.
Yeah,
In theory.
In theory.
In theory.
Like, what if they actually failed the whole Inception thing?
Yeah.
And like maybe he never actually found Saito, and he never woke up, he never woke up, and he just went into a dream state that someone else created for him.
It's entirely possible.
I noticed that part when she touched the top, and I was just like,
wait a minute.
Yeah, wait a minute. I was like, we got to remember this for later. So that's one thing to take note of if you didn't catch that. I didn't catch it the very, the 100 times I've seen it already. But yeah. And like for 2010, I'm surprised that this movie is already over a decade old.
That's crazy thinking about it now. I remember when it came out.
I know, me too. And it's like, it's crazy to think about, because I don't know what this has to say about films nowadays, but like, I feel like, the blockbuster hasn't come very far. It feels, like it feels like this film could have came out today.
Yeah. But
good film. Still very intriguing. Still like it.
I think as an action film, I think I really enjoy it. It's hard, again, not to really get captivated and like, oh man, these stakes and
dreams.
This action happening. It's exciting.
Good characters.
But again, going back to this whole like realism based science fiction, it's you got to take some liberties in a lot of places,
right?
So if you're looking in that realm, maybe you'll be disappointed. But again, just as an action film, maybe you just want to watch, like, oh yeah, I just want to get into it. I think Blockbuster 101, I guess.
Yeah, turn to Christopher Nolan.
It's enjoyable. It's an enjoyable film.
Yeah.
And you'd be wrong to miss it, I guess.
Definitely agree. So there we have it. Christopher Nolan's science fiction / action film, Inception. We hope you enjoyed listening and watching this episode, and we'll see you on the next one.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The End Credits. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at The End Credits Podcast, and over on Twitter at The End Credits. If you're watching the video version, make sure to subscribe to the End Credits YouTube channel. That's it. Thank you and goodbye.